For those who live in Navy Yard, did you know you can order Walters online for pickup? Visit waltersdc.com, click on menus, and then push the order online button so it's ready when you get there to take back home with you.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
The big right-hander throws. Swing a ground ball, third base side, fair! Inside the bag, down the line. Fairchild scores, so does Allen. Ozuna will jog into second with a two-run double. That's a backbreaker. It's 4-1 Atlanta. Just fair inside the bag and down the line. Now the 2-2 with Nunez running and a swing and a line drive hooked to the right field corner. It's going to be down and one hop off the fence. Nunez is tearing around third. He's going to score. Wood is in at second with a go-ahead double. The Nationals 5, the Braves 4. With Nunez running, Wood clocks a double into the right field corner, and the Nationals have the lead. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, 5-4 Nationals. Here's the set, the kick, the pitch. Swinging a fly ball, right center field, shallow. Dylan Cruz moving in under it. He's there. He makes the catch, and the Nationals win the ball game 5-4 and put an end to their 7-game slide.
Win was great. Put one on the board for the good guys. How's that?
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nationals' 7-game losing streak is over. Wednesday night, a 5-4 win at the Atlanta Braves in Game 3 of a 4-game series to end the Nats' 7-game losing streak, which is their longest losing streak in this regular season, in which the Nats now are 18-26. The Nats in this game overcame a 4-1 7th-inning deficit as, at last, the offense awakened. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Mason Kalfas, the top legal recruiter in Washington, D.C. Mason has been with us since our first season. You can reach him at 202-486-3535. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like for us to deliver a shout-out to a listener of this podcast. We have a good shout-out coming up later in the program. Nats starting pitcher Mitchell Parker, he on Wednesday night did struggle for a 4th consecutive start and then left the game off being hit by a comebacker. More on that coming up. But the Nats bullpen overall was good, and the offense, as mentioned, awakened. 2 runs top of the 7th, 2 runs top of the 8th. Significant contributions from James Wood, CJ Abrams, and Dylan Cruz. Mark, this ended up being a good win for the Nats.
Boy, did they need this, Al. They desperately needed a win of any type. But I think especially one like this. For 6 innings, I'm thinking to myself, my God, we're going to be having the exact same conversation again that we've been having all week about this team. They can't do anything offensively. They make a couple critical pitches in the wrong moment. They were running themselves into outs, and the losing streak was about to go to 8 games. And to their credit, they flipped the switch, and they finally came through at the plate in the 7th and 8th innings. And how about that bullpen closing this one out? A very narrow victory where there was zero margin for error. This wound up being a very good win for a team that needed a win of any type, but I think especially one like this.
Absolutely. And it ends up being a come-from-behind win, so you get late-game offense, something we had not seen much of here during this 7-game losing streak. I mean, the Nats, during the 7-game losing streak, totaled 15 runs. That was it. Only averaged a little more than 2 runs per game. But the Nats on Wednesday night, 5 runs, 11 hits, 2 walks, 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position. The 11 hits, 3 doubles, and 8 singles. And the Nats in this game, significant contributions from the team's really 3 most important position players in this rebuild: James Wood, CJ Abrams, and Dylan Cruz. Good to see all 3 guys contributing in this game. James Wood, another big hit for this team. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with an RBI double and a single. Wood in a Nats 2-run 8th and RBI double to right field for a 5-4 Nats lead despite having been down at 1.12. CJ Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 2 for 3 with 2 singles and 2 walks, though he was part of an unfortunate out.
Elder deals. Swinging a line drive, base hit right field. Abrams froze on contact. He's going to get the wave around. Fairchild comes up throwing. Abrams hesitates. Now the throw home, and he's out by 30 feet.
Abrams in an Nats one-run first, a leadoff single to center field, but got thrown out at home by a mile on a single by James Wood into right field for the first out. Abrams was out by so much, he didn't even slide. That did not appear to be what you would call a quality send by the Nats third base coach, Ricky Gutierrez. But Dylan Cruz, he is a Nats starting center fielder and number 7 batter, 2 for 4 with an RBI single and another single, went 1 for 2 on stolen bases. Cruz in the Nats 2-run 7th, had a 2-out first pitch RBI single into left field to cut the Nats deficit to 4-2, and he had a stolen base. Wood, Abrams, Cruz, all coming through in this game to varying degrees.
And if you could draw it up, that's how you'd want it to happen. You'd like those guys to be a big part of it, and they were. This was a great game for CJ Abrams. And let's throw out out at the plate, because that was entirely on Ricky Gutierrez. In 20 years of seeing bad sends by third base coaches from this team, this was up there among the worst, I think, that I've seen, especially when you consider that Abrams had to pause on contact, and then he wound up kind of stumbling around third a little bit. There was plenty of time for Gutierrez to put up the stop sign and realize, no, this isn't going to work. But let's forget about that. Really good night for Abrams. Not just the hits, the walks, good quality at bats in significant moments. Ends up, because of the threat of his speed, gets a 2-base error on the pickoff attempt to set up everything that went on in the 8th inning. So that was great from him. So good night. I mean, he's putting up some really impressive numbers at this point in the season. 375 on base percentage. And it's not just hits. He is drawing walks, a big part of his game that needs to improve. I mean, remember there was that point we're talking about, should James Wood actually be leading off? Well, it's better if he hits behind Abrams, but that only works if Abrams is getting on base enough. He is getting on base more than enough. He's doing a great job of that and looking like an all-star again. So a big night for him. Wood just continues to hit the ball hard, and to come through in big situations, of course, is important. And then Dylan Cruz needed this one as well. 2 good, solid singles in this one, including the 2-out RBI single moments after Josh Bell grounds into a killer double play. And you're thinking, well, that's it. That's going to kill all the momentum they may have. And instead, Cruz comes through with a sharp base hit to left. And then, as we've been pointing out, uses his legs, a good base runner, to steal second and put himself in position to score moments later on the Jose Tena double. So Cruz doing a lot of different things there to make that all happen. So good night for the 3 key young members of the lineup. Obviously, we've seen it from Abrams and Wood. It's really good to see Cruz joining that bunch. You hope this is the start of something for him, because he needs another positive run.
Yeah, when you look at Wood and Abrams, so James Wood continues to be number 1 among all qualified Nats in OPS for this regular season, 907. CJ Abrams now is qualified if you go by what's on Nationals.com after this game. Abrams, of course, missed some time due to injury, but Abrams' OPS is 900. So, again, I go back to this thing with the Nats of it doesn't feel like they are as bad as the record suggests. The Nats have 2 qualified players, each with an OPS of at least 900. That's pretty good. Like, a lot of teams can't say that they have that. The Nats have that. I mean, the problem is that beyond those 2, there ain't much happening with Nats players. If you want to go by OPS, Nathaniel Lowe is at 706, and then every other qualified guy is below 700. Even Keibert Ruiz, who got off to that really nice start, he has cooled off since. 697 now is his OPS. But no doubt, I mean, Wood and Abrams are doing really well. We've talked about this. If you want to look at all-star candidates for the Nats this season, Wood and Abrams are legit. I still would say Mackenzie Gore is legit as well. The other thing, too, with Abrams is the slash line, 300 batting average, near 400 on base, and a 500-plus slugging percentage. 311 batting average, 375 on base, 525 slugging percentage. That's an excellent slash line for a player to have.
It's almost identical. I mean, he's got a higher batting average and higher on base than James Wood, and his slugging almost the same, 536 to 525. They are now 9th and 10th in the National League in OPS. That is outstanding. And you wouldn't necessarily think, because of all the home runs from James Wood, that Abrams would be right on his tail, not just in OPS, but in slugging as well. And he is. Why? Because more singles and a couple of triples and just good overall production out of him. So that's been great to see. And, we got a ways to go, but there's a valid case here for 3 All-Stars. I don't know if it'll happen, especially if their record is well below 500, but there's going to be a compelling case if they keep this up for 3 guys to go back to Atlanta for the All-Star game in July.
And with Abrams, Casino Gate in Chicago last September now seems like a distant memory. Like, any notion of there being a hangover from that or him, wallowing in that or getting off to a slow start off that, none of those things appear to be the case. Like, he has hit the ground running. And the only thing that really has stopped him so far this season is the injury. Beyond that, he's been impactful really since the start of this season.
Everything has gone exactly how you could have wanted to go, given what happened at the end of last year. Addressed it in spring training, put it beside him, and then most importantly has come out and played really well. And as far as we can tell, conducted himself really well and had no issues that anybody is aware of at this point. So this was an important year for him. We knew that, and put aside the off the field stuff. His second half last year was not good. And that did suddenly raise questions of, well, can he do this over a whole year? Is he really that good all around player who can be a perennial all-star? That's why this season was so important. And, we're only a quarter of the way through it. But so far, he has absolutely played like he did for the first half of last year, in addition to doing everything he needs to do off the field to keep himself available and not, running into any kind of trouble that we know of. It's really nice to see. I mean, the Abrams-Wood combo, we've kind of known this was going to be important for them, obviously. But to see it in practice, the two of them near the top of the lineup every night, producing the way they are and producing in big moments as well. Very significant. Now, the next step, get Dylan Cruz in that same conversation. He's got a ways to go, but some good signs in this one.
Did want to send a salute to Jose Tena for his service in this win. He is an starting second baseman and number 8 batter, 2 for 4 with an RBI double and another double as the Nats' usual second baseman, Luis Garcia Jr., remains on the paternity list. Do you know why it is that Tena has been playing at second base and not third base, and Ahmed Rosario has been playing at third base and not second base? We've noted Tena's improved defense at third base. It's interesting with Garcia out, it has been Tena at second base.
I've been surprised by that myself. Now, I'm not in Atlanta, so I haven't had the chance to ask anybody that question. What was fascinating to me is at the end of this game, they do make the defensive switch, and Nunez is at second and Tena goes to third, which tells you they believe Tena is the better third baseman now than Rosario, which is really telling you something how far he's come in that regard. My only guess here is that it has to do with them believing that second base defense is more important than third base defense, I guess. You want your better infielder there. That's all I can think of. Or a belief that Rosario, for whatever reason, is not all that comfortable at second, even though I think he's played it probably more than third base in his career. So I've been a little surprised by that one myself, trying to figure out what the rationale would be. But to me, it was very telling how at the end of this game, they actually made a point to move Tena over to third for the final inning while Nunez is at second. I also figured, and maybe we'll see on Thursday in the finale, I thought we'd see Nunez get a start at some point here. Does it have to be Tena and Rosario? We know defensively Rosario has been pretty shaky. I mean, he almost cost them this game with that. It was a bounced throw from Riley Adams on the stolen base attempt, but Rosario did nothing to knock it down, and it ends up going down the line to run scores, and that could have been really costly to them. So I kind of figured just for defensive purposes, have a game with Tena at third and Nunez at second and hope that Nasim can do something offensively. Maybe we'll see that on Thursday.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal. I mean, Rosario has been good offensively, so I can sort of understand putting him in the lineup for that purpose. Tena actually hasn't done much offensively this season, but he did come through in this game on Wednesday night.
One other point about defense, since we're on the subject, and I was meaning to, as soon as this happened, I said, I got to bring this up with Al. Did you notice the outfield defensive change at the end of the game, where they bring in Jacob Young to play center? Okay, you move Dylan Cruz back to right field, okay. But who stayed in left field? It was James Wood, not Alex Call, who was pulled from the game. You've been on that bandwagon for a while. I thought that was a good sign to see that he was trusting James Wood to be in left field in the ninth inning of a one-run game. Maybe it also had something to do with the fact that in case the Braves tied it, you really want Wood's bat in the lineup, but at least they did trust him to be in left field. I'd like to see more of that. I know you would too.
I think that's all about offense. I don't know how you could think at this point that Wood is Cole's superior defensively. I mean, I don't think we've seen enough from Wood defensively to be able to say that, but I think you have to keep him in the game as we have discussed because of the offense. I mean, James Wood at bat has been one of the best batters in the majors this season. Like, that's not overstating things. You need that guy in your lineup, especially in a close game like this. I mean, this could have been an extra inning game. Thankfully, it was not. The Nats slammed the door shut with what Kyle Finnegan did in that ninth inning. Hey, are you a law firm partner or associate looking to transition to a new firm because of compensation, or your firm recently committed to $100 million in pro bono work that you disagree with? Or maybe your firm is employing people like Jurickson Profar while your competitor firms are using torpedo bats and smoking the competition. If this sounds like you should explore the lateral market and give Mason Kalfas a call. Mason is the top legal recruiter in the Washington, D.C. area. He has been a Nats Chat podcast advertiser since the beginning of our show. Mason will work with you to create a marketing and business plan to pitch to new firms and dramatically increase your compensation and or day-to-day happiness in your new job. Mason has placed partners and associates in just about every large law firm in D.C. and New York, and he can provide plenty of testimonials from candidates he has placed on the outstanding service that they received. You need a strong advocate in your corner to find the best law firm out there for your future career. Call Mason Kalfas today, 202-486-3535.
Life as a small business owner, everything is your problem and there aren't enough hours in the day. That's where LinkedIn Jobs, and by proxy Nats Chat, are here to help. For those crucial hires that you absolutely can't whiff on, turn to LinkedIn Jobs. Simply post your job and LinkedIn will take it from there, making sure it gets in front of the properly qualified candidates who are searching themselves. Find out why more than 2.5 million small business owners have turned to LinkedIn Jobs to grow their staff. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your jobs for free. linkedin.com/natschat. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
First delivery. Swinging a shot, hits Parker in the leg, deflects toward the catcher. Adams picks it up, throws to first, gets the out. Parker down to a knee for a moment, gets up. He's waving off the dugout. The other runners move up to second and third. Trainer Paul Lassard's coming out. That putout will go 1-2-3.
When it came to Nats pitching in this 5-4 win at the Braves on Wednesday night, the Nats starting pitcher was Mitchell Parker. And the negative with this game was what happened with Parker from a standpoint of A, him struggling for a fourth consecutive start, and B, him leaving this game due to getting hurt. Parker officially allowed 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 4 hits, which were a triple, a double, and 2 singles. He issued 2 walks. He did record 6 strikeouts, and he did throw a lot of strikes. 80 pitches, 56 strikes, just 24 balls. Now, the final 2 runs that Parker was charged with did come with him out of the game. The runs came in the bottom of the 5th, which he began by issuing back-to-back walks. He then got 2 outs, but was pulled from the game off getting hit on his left leg by a nasty comebacker off the bat of Austin Riley. And Davey Martinez, during his post-game session with reporters on Wednesday night, I don't want to overstate this. I don't know if Davey was concerned, but it did not sound like a layup that Mitchell Parker's fine. It sounds like this is something that's going to be monitored here in the coming day or two.
Yeah, he got hit in the knee. We'll see how he feels tomorrow. But he got hit right outside of his left knee. He's got it all taped up right now. I know he got treatment, so we'll see how he feels tomorrow.
So anyway, Parker leaves the game. Reliever Jackson Rutledge comes into the game, and he, to the first batter he faces, gives up a 2-out full count, 2-run double by Marcell Ozuna on a grounder into foul territory in left field for a 4-1 Braves lead. So the final line is perhaps a bit misleading with Parker, but I don't know that you say that he was good in this outing either. What'd you think?
No, I thought his first 2 innings was great. I mean, 6 up, 6 down, 3 strikeouts. And given the command issues, especially in the first inning, in those last few starts, I thought, okay, he's got some things figured out and he's back on the right track again. He ends up giving up a couple of hits. The home run that became a triple in the 3rd, gives up the 2 runs. And then what it really boils down to me, and unfortunately we'd seen this earlier in starts the last several weeks, this time it came in his final inning, it's the back-to-back walks to start the 5th. Both guys end up scoring. And I've lost track of the number, but I think in these 4 starts, all but one of the batters that he has walked, and he's had plenty of them, has wound up scoring. So that's been the killer, absolutely, is putting guys on for free, and then they come around to score. And I think that changes the whole outlook on this. If he doesn't do that, if he gets through the fifth unscathed, I think you're saying, hey, this was a big step forward for him when he needed it. And as far as the leg goes, we'll see. It could be the kind of thing that, after a day or two, it kind of swells up and you realize it's worse than it seemed. I thought it was interesting the way he immediately was like brushing off the idea of the trainer coming out, trying to wave them off, saying, hey, I'm fine. And then they have the conversation and they take him out. I do wonder, just given the situation in the game, the fact that Ozuna, the big right-handed hitter, was coming up, if he might have been pulling him anyways. Jackson Rutledge was already warming. He didn't need extra time to get ready. I wonder if Davey was thinking about pulling him anyways in that spot. And so the injury was only part of the equation. But, we'll see in the next day or two how he responds to it. And I'd like to think it was a step forward start for him, but still in the end, not enough. And it's the walks. You got to avoid those in that kind of situation.
Second time this season, Mitchell Parker has been struck by a ball in a rather disturbing way. The 4-3 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks at Nationals Park on April 5th. Josh Naylor sent a liner off Parker. Parker actually gathered himself, fired a terrific throw to first base for the out. But the body of Mitchell Parker has taken some abuse here so far this season. So Parker did as he did in this game. And the Nats bullpen overall ended up being good. Now, Rutledge did give up that 2-run double, but Rutledge officially tossed 1 1/3 scoreless innings. Cole Henry, bottom of the 7th, faced 3 batters and got 2 outs. Jose A. Ferrer, this was good. Jose A. Ferrer, he was really good, in fact. 1 1/3 scoreless, hitless, and walkless innings. He came into the game in the bottom of the 7th with a runner on first, 2 outs, and the Nats down 4-3. And Ferrer generated a swinging strikeout of the Braves cleanup hitter, Matt Olson. And Kyle Finnegan tossed a scoreless bottom of the 9th for the save, despite giving up a leadoff single. But I feel like with Finnegan, you have to budget for that. He's going to give up a hit or a walk. He always puts somebody on base, but inevitably he does get the job done, and he did in this game. But 4 Nats relievers officially combining for 4 1/3 shutout innings. There is, the caveat of Rutledge giving up the 2-run double, but overall, good job by the bullpen.
And that double off Rutledge, and it hit the chalk down the third base line. So, Ozuna got the double and it's charged to Rutledge, but not the worst pitch in the world. And the result was a little bit fluky. I really liked what I saw from Cole Henry. 3-pitch strikeout of Austin Riley. Glad to see him and glad to see Rutledge pitching in a close game and in situations of some consequence. And to me, this is about Ferrer. Big time strikeout of Olson. It's a long at bat, 3-2. He's throwing everything he's got, and then he gets him with 99 miles an hour to finish that off, and then comes back for the 8th. And even though he gets in trouble, hits the batter, stolen base, the runner ends up on third. This is the biggest test now for Ferrer. We've talked about when he gets himself into trouble, he can't get out of it. Well, you know what? He stranded that runner on third, got out of it. That, to me, is a really important outing for him, and you hope something that he can take from, next time he finds himself in a less than perfect inning, you can still get out of it without giving up the damage. So that was good. And with Finnegan, the only thing I'll say is this, and I tweeted this as the 9th inning was starting, because I felt like I remembered this being a problem, and I looked up the numbers, and indeed, it was a problem. In his career, 27 previous appearances on 5 or more days of rest. ERA in those games, 6.92. I remember him bringing this up before, that he likes to pitch regularly, that when he sits for a while, he loses that edge. Well, he sat for more than a week this time. It was 8 days between appearances. Immediately gives up the single. As you said, we kind of come to expect that from him, but good on him, locking it down after that. Another big strikeout of Riley, getting Ozuna to fly out. And in that inning, Kyle Finnegan threw 3 sliders. This is the pitch we've been talking about, I feel like, for a couple of years now. Needs a third pitch that he can trust to at least keep hitters honest. He threw 3 of them to those big-time hitters, Riley and Ozuna. And even if those weren't the ones that got him the outs, just the fact that you put it in the hitter's mind that you have something else helps now the fastball and the splitter be more effective. And I hope to see more of that from him. I was glad to see him trusted in a 1-run game in the 9th inning.
Absolutely. Ended up only being a 12-pitch inning for Finnegan. 9 of the 12 pitches were strikes. So the Nats get this win and can still forge a 4-game split here at the Braves. Game 4 Thursday afternoon at 12:15. Trevor Williams will be the starting pitcher for the Nats. Also on Wednesday evening was the Rochester Red Wings losing at home to the Durham Bulls 7-4. In this game, both Brady House and Robert Hasell III homered. Brady House now for this season for AAA Rochester has an OPS of 822. I know we danced this dance last season with James Wood and more so Dylan Cruz, so I don't know that we should be playing the game of when might Brady House be called up. But man, he is doing well. And if you just go by the numbers, he is looking more and more ready. And it would seem like there's at least a decent chance we see him at some point over the next, month or so.
I would put it this way. I think we're now able to start talking about this as, okay, when is it going to happen? I don't think it's immediate. I don't think we're on the verge of it. I kind of felt like all along with both him and Hasell, we're in more like the June or July range, where I would figure that July would be the more likely time period. But if they're playing well enough and healthy, you could maybe push that timeline up and we see them perhaps at some point in June. Let's point out the Nats really are not getting production out of third base. And Paul DeYoung isn't coming back anytime soon, and he wasn't giving them production offensively either. So there's a case to be made that as long as you feel good about what House is doing, that there's a little more urgency there maybe to get him up. In Hassel's case, I know Jacob Young, Dylan Cruz have not hit much for them. I feel like Hasell would really have to knock their socks off to force that issue. I think it's more just let him continue to play, show that he's healthy, productive, and then we probably see him at 2 at some point this summer. I think there's a little more urgency on House, perhaps. Again, I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's fair to start looking at this the way we started to look at James Wood probably around this time last year. And it took a while. It wasn't until July 1st. He did have an injury that slowed it down a little bit. If House can stay healthy and stay productive, I think we're going to start to be on Brady House watch here maybe as we get to June.
Well, the other thing, too, is House's OPS is nearly 100 points higher than Hassel's. I mean, Hassel's doing all right, 727, but House, you could argue, is like knocking on the door in a way that Hasell really isn't. And Hassel's doing fine, but House is doing really well. And you wonder if he might sort of force the issue here in the coming weeks and make it so that he gets called up to the majors.
House has been more consistent from day one. Hasell got off to a really rough start, but over the last couple of weeks, Hasell has really kicked it into gear, and that's been good to see because I would say about by May 1st, we were kind of thinking, oh boy, is this guy ever going to figure it out after a slow start? So good to see that he has started to hit. And on a Rochester team that hide the women and children, when you look at their overall season, what they're doing as a team, it's been ugly, especially on the pitching side. But it's good to see that at least the top 2 prospects there don't appear to be negatively affected by how the team is playing. They have both done well, especially Hasell more recently. And you hope that being on a losing AAA team, a really bad losing AAA team, isn't bad for their spirits and that they're still staying motivated to try to get up to the big leagues.
Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. May is officially here, and so are the rising temperatures. Before you know it, you'll be wondering what else you can do to keep cool during the dog days of summer. Beat the heat and keep the AC in your home with Window Nation's energy-efficient vinyl windows. During Window Nation's semi-annual sale, buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free, and a free entry door when you purchase a house full of windows. Plus, no money down, no interest, and no monthly payments until 2027. That's a whole lot of savings and a super smart investment, especially when prices are rising. So how exactly does Window Nation keep prices affordable? Well, Window Nation works directly with the top window manufacturers in the country, which means all of Window Nation's windows are assembled right here in the USA. Plus, Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty, so you'll keep saving long into the future. Window Nation's semi-annual sale ends on May 31st. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free, and a free entry door when you purchase a house full of windows, plus pay nothing until 2027. Schedule your estimate right now at 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
Tim Shover's here to tell you about Babbel. Did you know that the Nats are on the Spanish radio airwaves for the 2nd consecutive season?
Ildemar, un batazo altísimo. La bola se va. Atrás, se va dinero, atrás. Se fue la fruta.
If you want to know what Luciano and Gustavo are saying on the broadcast on calls such as this one, then check out Babbel. And here's their special offer for Nats Chat listeners. 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/natschat. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/natschat. That's spelled BABBEL.com/natschat. Babbel.com/natschat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
One of the game's greatest players has engaged a variety of acts which have stained the game, and he must now live with the consequences of those acts. By choosing not to come to a hearing before me, and by choosing not to proffer any testimony or evidence contrary to the evidence and information contained in the report of the special counsel to the commissioner, Mr. Rose has accepted baseball's ultimate sanction, which is lifetime ineligibility.
All right, Mark, as a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, is a voter for the National Baseball Hall of Fame. We on Tuesday had the big-time news of MLB removing Pete Rose and 16 other deceased individuals from the permanently ineligible list, making Rose and also Shoeless Joe Jackson among those who will become eligible in some way for the National Baseball Hall of Fame. We talked about this some on the last installment of the Nats Chat podcast. I don't think it is at all a certainty that Rose ends up getting into the Hall of Fame, but the fact that he now becomes eligible for it is certainly interesting. I'll kind of leave the floor open here. What's your take on all of this?
I was surprised, like a lot of people, that this happened. I really didn't sense a lot of momentum in this direction, and I guess it really is just about the fact that Rose passed away within the last year, and that's why it's come to the forefront. Perhaps some political influence, which, if that's the case, I don't like that fact that would have had anything to do with it, if that did have anything to do with it. But let me point this out for people who don't know exactly how it worked, and it's confusing, and I understand why this would be the case. Pete Rose is not immediately eligible for the Hall of Fame on the next ballot, or Shoeless Joe Jackson, and neither one of them would be up on the regular annual BBWAA ballot, which is for players who have retired recently, and you're allowed to stay on that ballot for 10 years if you maintain at least 5% of the vote. That's what I vote on, and about 500 of my colleagues. The players who are further back from that, or the ones who have been on the BBWAA ballot and didn't get in, are then sent to what we used to call the Veterans Committee. It's now referred to as the ERAS Committee. And there's actually 3 different committees that rotate every 3 years for these. And so the next time that any of the Black Sox or Pete Rose would be up for consideration is December of 2027. So the 2028 Hall of Fame induction. Who votes on that one? It's an entirely different group than the BBWA group. There are only 16 people who vote for that. And the makeup of that voting body, it's a combination of writers, and these are like really experienced, oftentimes Hall of Fame writers themselves. It's players, Hall of Fame players themselves included in this, and baseball executives. And it rotates. It's not the same group all the time. It constantly changes, and you find out the names of who it is only a few days before they meet at the winter meetings. Those votes are private. They all gather in a room and discuss and debate, and they put in their votes, and they're only allowed to vote for, I think, 3 of however many players are on that ballot. You need 12 out of 16 to get in, and we never find out who voted for whom. I know some writers who've been part of that committee, and I've tried to ask them, and they said, listen, I would love to tell you, but I cannot. It is sworn secrecy. It is a very different process than what we deal with in the BBWA. So let me just present that context first. Second point is this: knowing generally who those people are who vote on that. I think they're less inclined to vote for Pete Rose, and maybe Shoeless Joe Jackson as well, than maybe even the BBWA would be. If you remember, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they got over 60% of the vote among the writers. You need 75 to get in. So they didn't get there. It was still a majority of writers. When they did, it's only happened once so far that they've been on the Veterans Committee ballot. They barely got any support at all. And that said to me that that group, combination writers, Hall of Famers, and executives, really did not want steroid guys in the Hall of Fame. And I feel like they would view gambling in the same vein. Now, you never know who's going to be on that committee. Johnny Bench could be on it. There could be people with direct ties to Pete Rose, and that could change the conversation somewhat. But I feel like that group is by far not a slam dunk and in many ways less likely to vote for Pete Rose than maybe my writing brethren. If it was up to me, and as I said, it's not, I do feel like, yes, they're gone. They're no longer with us. Yes, they paid the ultimate price for it. But as I've maintained all along throughout my time as a voter, I believe they're asking us to consider character, integrity, and sportsmanship. I don't know how you can say that these guys display that, and that includes the Black Sox players. And even beyond that, I mean, I think it's pretty well established that in baseball, really in sports in general, the number one crime you can commit involves gambling. And really what the Black Sox did is like the ultimate crime, throwing games and throwing a championship game, the World Series. Rose, obviously, it's a little different scenario, supposedly only bet on his team to win, but he's still betting on the games that he's involved in and has input and the ability to change the outcomes of those games. So I just don't see how, even no matter how many years have passed, even if these guys are long gone now, what kind of message is that sending to future generations? Hey, you know what? You can throw the World Series, but you may not make it in while you're alive, but someday we'll still put you in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's the right message. I don't think that that's what you want to be sending to baseball fans and future players and anybody in the sport. These are the ultimate crimes from a baseball competitive standpoint. And I feel like that should be upheld. And yeah, you do that. Sorry, you don't get to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I know with the Black Sox scandal, there's a little bit of nuance. People talk about the owner being a terrible person and was underpaying these guys. And so, they did what they did because they felt like they had to do it. The movie 8 Men Out, the book 8 Men Out, which is a terrific book, by the way, I think that has helped to sort of soften the stances for people on the Black Sox guys. So I think Joe Jackson has a decent shot. I'm with you, though, on Pete Rose. I don't think it's some layup that he's going to be getting in. There's also with Rose, and I brought this up in the last installment of the podcast, and this is a tricky thing, but the allegation of him having a sexual relationship with a minor many years ago, to what extent might that factor into people voting for him when you consider the morality clause for the Hall of Fame? I think it's interesting, though, that people who have never been eligible for the Hall of Fame, they're not going to be subject to BBWAA voting. Like, I would think that there's an argument to be made for, if you've never been eligible, why do you directly go to the committee phase of things? Why wouldn't you start off on the ballot for you writers? I kind of wish that was the case, especially with Rose.
It is a little strange, and I think it's almost more of a case of nobody ever anticipated something like that happening. Let me point this out, too. It's another kind of like little known thing that until the Rose suspension, players who were on the permanently ineligible list were not barred from being in the Hall of Fame. And Joe Jackson was actually on one or two ballots way, way back. It might have been the very first Hall of Fame election. And he was not voted in by the writers back in that time. And so he fell off the ballot. After the Rose decision in 1989, the Hall of Fame decided that anybody on the permanently ineligible list would not be eligible for the Hall of Fame. And so they kind of created this new rule. And now that Rob Manfred has decided, okay, once you're dead, that doesn't apply anymore, the Hall of Fame almost has no choice but to say, okay, well, we need to consider you now. And I think just because of the wording of the language of who's on the BBWA ballot, it doesn't allow for a case like that, even though Pete Rose never was up for election among the BBWA voters. There's nothing written into the rules that would allow for that to happen. And it would be fascinating. I think he would have a much better chance, honestly, if he was. As I said, I don't think I would give him my vote, but knowing the other writers and what I've heard from them over the years on the subject and knowing how a lot of them have treated the steroid players, I could absolutely see it happening. Instead, it is, and I think unfortunate that it is this 16-person committee. I'm all for big voting bodies. I'm all for transparency. I know a lot of people say that the writers get things wrong and that the process is flawed in some way. Look, there's no such thing as a perfect system, but I will put our system up against any other Hall of Fame in any sport that's out there. The integrity we all show, the number of people we have that make it so that 1 or 2 votes aren't going to make the difference. You put 16 people in a closed door session and come out of that with the resolution. That to me is not nearly as solid of a process as what we have. And, unfortunately, when it comes to Rose and Jackson and all the others, that is going to be the process for it.
Yeah. And also with these committees, the idea that they do some great job voting, that to me is sketchy, man. We don't know what kind of research these former players are doing and former managers. I go back to someone like Harold Baines. Nice guy, very nice career. He should not be in the Hall of Fame. He got into the Hall of Fame via this committee process because people who knew him and liked him were on the committee that got him in. And that's not the way that a Hall of Fame should work. I also think you hit on something that's key. Technically speaking, right, the Hall of Fame never banned Pete Rose. The Hall of Fame just had a rule that if you were on the permanently ineligible list, you were not eligible for the Hall of Fame. And I think that language matters here. Rose was on the permanently ineligible list of MLB, and because of that, he was not eligible for the Hall of Fame. But technically speaking, the Hall of Fame never actually banned Pete Rose.
No, but as I said, they created that rule after he was banned. And so it was sort of a little bit of a roundabout way of them not having to be the ones to say it, but deep down you kind of felt like it. And it applies, I think, unfortunately, in the steroid issue, too, where we as the writers have for many years asked the Hall of Fame, give us some more guideline on this. Do you really want us considering the integrity, character, sportsmanship that has been in place since the 1930s? Or do you just want us to vote based on the playing performance? And every single time the Hall of Fame has basically said, we're not changing anything. We leave it up to you. So they've gone out of their way, I think, a lot of times to not take a stand on these things and leave it up to the voters and to Major League Baseball to decide how these things are handled, for better or worse.
All right, we have a shout out to deliver. This comes to us from Kevin Rush. Writes Kevin, my name is Kevin Rush. I was a season ticket holder in the RFK days. I started the Let's Go New Guy chant for Marlon Byrd, and I flew home for Game 3 of the World Series, so I know what I'm talking about when I shout out to Mark Lerner to sell the team. If you can't be bothered to spend Patrick Corbin's salary on a designated hitter and a few relievers, get out of the way so someone else can. We thank Kevin Rush for that shout out, and I do believe that Nats Chat podcast history has been made because previously these shout outs have been, hey, congratulations to little Jimmy for his Little League accomplishment, or congratulations to Martin on his retirement. Here we have someone using the shout out as a platform to deliver a baseball take, in this case, to deliver a take calling for the sale of the Washington Nationals. So Kevin Rush, break it on through to the other side with how he made usage of his shout out on the podcast.
We have entered uncharted waters on this one, Al. That's all I'm going to say about that. You are free to shout out whoever you like, as long as it passes muster with Tim in terms of decency. And this one did. And so, hey, express your opinion. Go for it. I would be surprised if that message gets through to the owner of the team or that it has any impact on his ultimate decision in that regard. But thanks for the message, Kevin.
Well, there is a rising anger toward ownership and management of the Nats. There's no doubt about that. We're seeing it a lot in the feedback that we get. We're seeing it a lot on social media. And now we're seeing it on the shout-outs for the podcast. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Mason Kalfas, the top legal recruiter in Washington, D.C. Mason has been with us since our first season. You can reach him at 202-486-3535. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Long set for Acton. Now the delivery. Breaking ball hit high in the air to left. This has a shot. Jimenez going back, nears the fence. He looks up at the wall. See you later. It's a home run. Brady House with a 2-run homer. And the Red Wings are now within one at 5-4 Durham. Brady House with his team high 6th home run.